Ergo concordantly, we're going to talk about Matrix Reloaded, subsequently divided into concordantly. I don't know. I only have 2 words that he says.
Vis-a-vis Ergo. Should we just get into it? Should we just enter the Matrix?
Let's enter right in.
All right. Should I add one of those sound effects that's like, the thing going into the back of your head?
That'll suffice. I just did it for you. Well, you don't even have to find one.
Thank you. Welcome everyone to Afterthoughts. This is a podcast where we rewatch movies and we compare our first and second impressions. And then we discuss a related topic. My name is Joshua Kazemi and I'm here with my co-host, Cole, the Coleman Taylor Thomas.
That's me.
Boom. Today we're talking about The Matrix Reloaded.
Oh, nice sound effect. I liked it.
That was real, by the way. Didn't add it in post.
You should really add one in post, though, like either very close to it or right over it, just to see if we can hear both. That'd be fun.
Sure. You can compare and contrast.
That's what this podcast is all about.
Should I start by saying that I did choose Reloaded over the original because I just think it's more interesting to talk about this one.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we can. Yeah. No, we won't talk about that at all.
Everyone loves the original. Everyone loves the original. And whether or not it holds up or not is going to be an interesting discussion that we can save for another episode. But I feel like Reloaded is polarizing.
Why didn't you pick the third one?
Because we got to start with this one.
Because what? Did you say because we have to...
We should start with this one.
I feel like they all... 3 have their own reasons to pick it. The first one was so good, everyone loved it, so that's a reason to rewatch it. This one is just polarized so right down the middle. And then the third one everyone hates. So that's another reason to go watch it, to see if we still hate it, which I'm sure we will.
The day will come. All of these days they'll come to pass. But right now, this episode, we're talking about Reloaded, which came out in 2003. And before we dive in, before we really plug in, Coleman's going to take us through the plot of Matrix Reloaded.
Yeah, I'll take us through it. What plot? Bam. Done. Sick burn. So, Neo is superhuman now and can do whatever the frick he wants. Boom. He just flies around and does his Superman thing, as they say, and just flying around. Why even fight him? Because you can't now, so don't. We finally see Zion in this one. They make it to... It's the only last standing city of the humans, and it's in the center of the earth, I think. Or under the crust. I don't remember. Something like that.
It's close, because that's where it's warm.
Right. And so that's where they are in the real world. And then Neo keeps having this recurring dream of Trinity dying, at least in the beginning. I can't remember if he has it again. So he's freaking out about that the whole movie. And, oh, goodness. They have to find a key maker because the Oracle tells him he has to find a key maker to get to the room where he'll find something out, something super secret that he needs to find out. And
I think it's something to the effect of like Neo needs to find out, he needs to figure out what to do. He doesn't know what to do. And so all of the things are like, here's how you find out what you're going to do.
And so they have to first find the key maker who's super guarded by this French guy, right? And all his lackeys. Yes. So they go and fight him, or fight his lackeys, and it's a cool part of the movie, but they get the key maker, and then it turns out they have to do all this stuff at the right exact time. They have to like turn off all these alarms and get everything just right for a 2-minute period so Neo can get to this room so he can figure out what to do. Yeah, and they get a bunch of the other crews from the real world to help him out. And Neo makes it to that room, and one of the dumbest conversations I've ever heard happens. And he figures out he has a choice to make, and that's where I'll end it.
Boom.
Boom.
That's The Matrix Reloaded. It's like you guys just watched it. I loved this movie. I loved the original in 1999. I loved this in 2003. I was so excited to see it. I saw it in theaters multiple times. Loved it. Just loved it. I thought it was so fun. And I think, yeah, I couldn't get enough of The Matrix Reloaded. Thought it was the coolest thing.
I loved every Matrix movie I saw the first time I saw it. All three. Loved all of them.
Okay. There you go.
But I never had any interest in watching the second or third one ever again after that. And I think what happened was I watched the first one again at a later time and was like, this is where it ends. This is the end. Like, you don't need to go past this. This is good. And I just never had an interest in watching Reloaded or, I don't even, what is the last one? Requiem? Retribution? I don't remember. And I don't care.
Revolutions.
Thank you. Yeah, so I don't know. I only saw it that once, and I remember there were cool action parts in it, but I didn't remember much outside of that at all.
There you go.
I remember he has a conversation in this giant room with TVs, but that was it.
Mm-hmm. I remember, so I loved a movie in 2003, and I feel like maybe just my, the realm of people I interacted with were people that were my age, and we all loved it, right? And then we all got to a point where people turned on it. Like, everyone just seemed to turn on it. And maybe adults always hated it. Very possible. But it seemed like everyone my age started to turn on the movie. Much like, that happened, the same kind of thing happened with, like, The Phantom Menace and stuff like that. So people turned on it, and I never really did. I think I finally settled to a point where I was like, sure, it's not as good as the first one. But never was ever, like, I never chimed in with The Matrix Reloaded is terrible. But a lot of people have claimed that it's terrible.
Oh, well, good for you. You just must be better than all of us.
No. It's been a long time since I rewatched it. But for years, it just was like, I'm not sure if it's terrible. I will probably admit that it's not as good as the first. Because I have re-seen the first one plenty of times. Like, we watched it in school. It was a movie that we talked about. So I've seen that one recently, and I still think it holds up really well.
I think what fell apart for me and what made me not want to watch it again, because when I first saw it, I remember I was younger and I thought the action was awesome. But then I just, after that, I could remember all the cool, like, what was cool about the first one was not just the action, but just how unique the idea was and how deep it was and confusing. But once you get it, it's got these really cool connections and it's just like an awesome idea. While in the second one, you can't really do that again. You can't do what you did in the first one again. You won't, like, surprise me with what the Matrix is. You won't, like, it's not this, like, fascinating idea anymore. It's already been established in the first one. You get to the second one, you can't do that again. You can just keep going with what we already know. And I think that's why it just kind of fell apart for me. It can't be as, like, mesmerizing as the first one. And on top of that, I just don't think it's as good. But we'll get into that.
So going into your rewatch this week, what were you expecting?
I was hoping to like it more. I was hoping that I could just rewatch it, and I did not expect it to be as good as the first one, but I was hoping to just, now that I'm older and maybe there were things that went over my head when I was younger, such as that really complex conversation at the end, or anything like that at all, anything that had to do with the plot that I didn't understand, maybe make more sense this time around.
Were you hoping for, like, a Star Trek Into Darkness situation?
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
There you
go.
go.
To just maybe just enjoy it.
Yeah.
For what it is, I guess.
And that's what I hoped for, but I also didn't necessarily expect it. What about you?
I figured that I would, like, become more aware of its faults and maybe finally be able to really articulate, like, what separates it from the first one in terms of quality. But I also anticipated that I would never hate this movie.
No.
Like, I think that it would be a movie that even if it was bad, I would still enjoy.
Well, shall we get into it?
think so.
I'm really curious. What did you think?
There's too much of this movie that I really, really like.
Kidding me?
And it's just, I almost want to say that I love this movie, almost, but I'm not quite there. There's too much of it that I really, really like. There's too much of it that I'm still really impressed with. But yeah, it's not great. It's nowhere near the first one. It's like not even close. And I do understand like that feeling of they maybe shouldn't have made this. They maybe should have tried to move on to something else. Like, I get that, and I'm almost okay with that. But here it is. It's been made. It's a really old movie now at this point, and I think there's a lot of good stuff in this movie.
I'm really curious to hear what you think is good about it. But we'll get there.
What did you think?
So, I mean, it's okay. It's all right. It's okay. It's not a bad movie, and it's certainly a fun watch. There are awesome scenes in it. Everyone knows the highway scene's awesome. Some people like the super cloned Agent Smith attacking Neo. I don't. I think it looks silly and super CGI, but that's just me. There's a lot of cool fighting scenes, and there are some cool ideas and topics they discuss. But overall, I think they're just writing what they had in the first one and keeping it going. There's not...
Yeah.
It's a lot of points and ideas strung together rather than cohesively written together, and then just tons of action added in to keep you going. So
those solid points. Yeah. Solid points.
Nowhere near as compelling as the first one, but still...
Right.
Still fun, for sure.
Yeah. So I love... I'm going to talk about a couple of things I really liked about the movie. I really love the score. I've always really enjoyed that score. It's so cool. It's so fitting. It's like it doesn't just sound good, but it's appropriate. And to me, it helps me get into that world. And it just helps to encapsulate the tone and feel of the movie. So I like the score a lot. I like all of the fighting that is real. Any fighting that isn't done with a computer is phenomenal. Like, it's still so good. And I think maybe even beats fighting in the first movie. Like, the first movie's better in every way. But in terms of just like fighting, the choreography in this movie, I think they stepped it up.
I don't know.
Fight scene with Keanu and I can't remember his name. The guy who protects the Oracle.
Yeah, I know. I knew you were going to say that scene because I was like, there's one good fighting scene in my mind in this movie, and that's it.
That one's awesome. And then there is a lot of cool fight choreography in the highway scene, even before that, with Neo fighting all those guys on the stairway, with Morpheus fighting the two twins, Trinity fighting... most of the fighting she does in that sequence in the beginning and at the end where she takes out the thing by herself, like any fighting that is real is so good. I think I really like all that stuff. The choreography, because it doesn't feel like a dance. Like there's so much bad choreography in movies nowadays in terms of fighting, and it just takes me out of it. Like anytime someone's fighting a group of people, it's like if you pay attention to anyone who's not currently fighting, they're waiting to fight and they're not doing anything, and it just drives me nuts. This movie stages it and blocks it really well,
or like
I like that
in like Star Wars Episode 3 where there's a part where Obi-Wan and Anakin are fighting and they literally swing their lightsabers like in front of them like 3 times, like just spinning. That's it. I don't understand that part at all, but whatever.
So fight choreography I think is awesome.
See, I still think the fight between Neo and Morpheus in the first one is better.
It's a good one.
On top of that, the fight you mentioned, I laughed in that scene because it was there was no necessity for that fight at all. They just wanted to have it in there. That's true. Part, like his rationale behind fighting is like not good enough. It's
a joke.
Poorly written.
It's a joke.
It's like to figure out if he's the one or not, or like determine whether he is who he says he is. And it's like, really? That's why you had to fight him? Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think
okay, go ahead.
I think that's what my main hang up with the movie. That's just what the movie is. Like, oh, we did some really cool stuff in the first one. Let's find some reasons to keep it going. Let's throw some plot points down just so we can have a cool movie and maybe talk about some more cool ideas. But like, it's clearly just thrown together. It's not as cohesive as the first one. Like, it's very much that fight and how I just described it is how I think of the whole movie. It's just a bunch of reasons to keep it going.
Fair. That's fair. But I still like there's a part of me that wants to like appreciate that even though maybe the movie shouldn't have been made, it still got made and there was a lot of good work in it. Like a lot of good talent poured into a movie that maybe didn't deserve it. Like, I imagine what these guys could have made if they had just done something else. Like, if they took all that creativity that they had back then that maybe they don't have anymore.
Yeah.
But if they had it back then and did something else, could have been really cool. But I think there's still so much on display here that's really cool. Like, the highway scene gets referred to a lot, and I think it deserves that. I mean, they literally constructed that highway. It's not a real highway. They built it just for the movie.
Did they build it, or was it an abandoned military base?
I guess they built the road that they're driving on is not real.
Okay.
It's cool. It's so cool.
That is cool.
And there are moments where Trinity is like really driving. It's awesome. It's so cool. Like there's just a lot of really great stuff that I think went into a movie that just, didn't live up to the predecessor.
Yeah. And another thing I enjoy about it though is I like the ideas they try to talk about. I think they're too strung together, and I think they're very much segmented rather than being one long cohesive like thematic idea. There's just a bunch of different ideas thrown in, but I still think they're cool that they at least tried. Like even that ridiculous conversation at the end, just trying to present the idea of like you have a choice, but it's already made, even if you're making a choice, and how like complicated that idea is. I think it's cool that they tried to add that in and try to like bring light to that. I just think they did it rather poorly, and I think it's because of what I mentioned earlier, just because that's not really the reason I think they made this movie. I think they just wanted to keep going. So not as much thought was put into how to make this like most impactful in this movie. It's just like, we want this in the movie as well as all this action. Let's like throw it all in there.
Yeah. And I feel like, that element that you brought up is like the most interesting one, that idea of free will. Like, I think that is a very interesting thread. And if it was just that, it could have been more focused and just a better plot all around. But there's so many other things that they try to add into it and, like to weave it together. And I just don't think it really works that well. Like, it's a pretty straightforward plot, but it's filled to the brim with so many high concept ideas, and so it just feels a little clunky in that way. Like, and it just, there are too many times where you're thinking like, does that make any sense?
I know,
but you don't have time to think about it because you're on to the next thing. It's just so jam packed. Like the idea that there's been 9 matrices or whatever,
and the idea
that doesn't make any sense.
And not only that, that's on top of that. That's like the first point in the movie you find out the real world also isn't the real world. Because at that point it can't be. So his choice is to either go into the source and start over Zion with however many people he says, or go save Trinity, right? Those are like his 2 choices.
Yeah.
But that means, so he says Zion's been destroyed by the robots 7 times before, 9 times before, however many times before. That means it's also not part of the real world if it can be destroyed and rebuilt as well. And that's just like, what? What is that?
Yeah.
What do you... And it clearly is not the real world when Neo starts doing his crazy stuff there too, but it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's very confusing.
And another idea that I liked that I thought was cool was how the Oracle mentions a bunch of like old programs and how they tie that back in. So she's like, in an older version that she essentially says they had werewolves and vampires and like ghosts and stuff. But then all the guys' henchmen are essentially those things. They have to kill some of them with a silver bullet. The two like twins are obviously ghost-like. And I thought that was really cool. But at the same time, that's all it is. And that's kind of what I feel like every idea that comes up, it's like cool that you had that in there, but then it doesn't tie in with anything else in the movie. And I wish they had tied more together. Like, that's a cool idea. And the other idea of like free will but is it like predestined or not is a cool idea. But those don't tie together at all. And I just wish they did. I wish the movie like strung together better than it does, rather than just being, it's so segmented in my mind.
Yeah, and I think I guess there was plenty of time, maybe not for a movie of this caliber, but I think that's always a struggle with huge sequels. It's like there isn't always enough time to dedicate to the script, the bedrock of the whole thing, because so much goes into pre-production and production and post-production. So it's the bummer. Like a more focused idea really would have helped the movie for sure. But I'm going to say something that I think you will disagree with.
Let's find out.
Let me finish the whole thought too, by the way.
Okay.
Okay. So I think that the CGI in the movie is used sparingly. And by that, I mean it's used a lot. But it's only really used in the Matrix world, and only for things that humans can't actually do. So to me, all of the CGI with Neo fighting a million Agent Smiths, it makes sense to me because it's Neo doing things that humans can't do in a computer animated world. Like, the world itself is CGI within the context of the movie. So when he looks CGI completely, it's almost believable to me. Like, if there was ever going to be a movie with passable bad CGI, I think it would be this one.
Just let me know when you're done with your thought.
Because the only CGI that's in the real world, quote unquote real world, is just like as backdrops, you know, and like the ships flying around. Like no person is ever CGI'd like they are in the Matrix world.
All right. I mean, yeah, I get the justification that you're pointing out, and I can see that. I understand. That at least makes sense. But then when I compare it to the first one, the fighting in the first one, I think, is so much cooler. That scene isn't even that great to me anymore, just because it's... Even Neo looks so, not even just CGI, but like cartoony. He doesn't even look real, and I don't like that. When you compare to the other... Even in this movie, the scene we said that has a cool fighting choreography, I even like that one better. Like, I always like more realistic compared to very goofy CGI.
Yeah.
And
the fight scenes in the original are incredible. Like, the lobby scene
exactly.
And there are so many more. Like, it's jam-packed with great fight sequences.
So I absolutely would have traded this scene for another cool scene like that. So anything else other than... I really don't care for 1,000 Agent Smiths, which I think is a silly concept anyways, fighting Neo. That was one thing I always hated about all of them. Not the first one, obviously, but the second and third, that Agent Smith comes back and is the antagonist forever. That annoyed me to no end. One, it makes the like overcoming in the first one seem trivial and silly, and two, it's just annoying. I wish we had another antagonist to show that, oh, you've overcome this obstacle, now we have another one. No, we're just going back.
It's Agent Smith and it's the machines. They're separate now.
I know, but
your point's still valid.
I still don't enjoy it. I think they could have found someone. Like, I think you could have had someone else do it. I think it would have even been better rather than just trying to make up a reason to bring him back. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense either. The only thing I think that's cool that came out of it is that fan theory about Agent Smith actually being the one, which is kind of cool. But that's it.
Yeah.
Because it kind of makes a lot of sense with all the points that came up. And I'm like, all right, I'll take your fan theory. But, sorry. Sorry about my rant. I just did not enjoy Agent Smith being the main antagonist for the entire series.
Mm-hmm.
But that's really just my main point. I wish it was more cohesive. There's really cool action scenes. There's really cool ideas. And I honestly think if they had taken the time to make it more cohesive and just more structured, I think this could have been like as good as the first one, honestly. But I just think it was too much of, all right, we're just trying to like ride this train we've already created. Yeah. That's all I really got.
Yeah, me too. Those are all my notes.
I'm going to have to start listening to the scores of movies, though, because I almost, unless we're watching Interstellar, I never really have anything to say about them.
Man, that I love. It's like, to me, it's like cherry on top. You know, they rarely ruin a movie. I think the only time I ever brought it up in a negative way was on Gladiator. But that's a special circumstance of having a very similar score. But yeah, I think they only ever really help when they're like amazing.
Yeah.
Poll time?
Poll time.
All right. I'm going to read the question, and I think maybe you should give me an answer before I even read you the choices.
All right.
Okay, so the question was, what was the problem with Matrix Reloaded? And they're short answers because they have to be for Twitter. So what's your short answer? What was the problem with Matrix Reloaded?
It doesn't make sense.
Okay. That's more or less one of the answers.
All right.
Okay. So option A is the cliffhanger ending.
Okay.
Option 2 is the bad CGI. Option 3 is convoluted plot. And option 4 is it exists.
Oh my gosh. That's funny.
Go ahead and guess which of our people on Twitter which one won.
It exists.
Oh, close. That was second place.
All right.
Our number one answer with 75% of the vote is convoluted plot.
Nice. I would agree.
25% voted it exists, and the other two didn't get any votes. No one cares about the cliffhanger. No one cares about the CGI. It's because of the plot and just the fact that it exists, which honestly is pretty on par with what we talked about.
I know. It's funny.
That's amazing. Oh, boy.
Also, the cliffhanger ending with that guy that you barely see in the movie that you don't really care about at that point. Stupid. Another convoluted plot point. Make your movie more cohesive.
And then we had someone tweet at us. He responded to the poll. It's Minnesota Minute said, we voted for convoluted plot, but option 4, it exists, was a close second for us.
And that seems to be just the overall idea anyways. 75% and 25. Glad we're all on the same page.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for tweeting at us, Minnesota Minute.
Thank you.
All right. We ready for that topic time?
Let's do it. Topic time.
Boom. Today, Coleman and I have been asked to reboot the Matrix series.
Rebooted.
So we are in charge of bringing forth a new Matrix trilogy to a new generation of audiences. So we're going to have our first writing session and just hammer out some ideas.
Hammer them out.
So just picture us with a big whiteboard. And
also, I think it's funny that you said to reboot it, because isn't reboot kind of like the Matrix? Let's just make a Matrix reboot crossover.
There you go.
Boom. Idea number 1. Put it on the whiteboard.
I like that. So you're talking about the early 2000s or maybe late 90s
I think it's
animated television series?
3D animated television series.
Boom. That show was awesome.
It was. I honestly want to watch it again because I don't remember anything about it.
Yeah, that's probably a good thing. We should maybe do that.
We could have a whole episode over it. Or a few.
Yeah, I'd be fine with that. All right, so okay, how do we start this? So I don't even know what what do you want to see if the Matrix comes back? What's like your priority? Like, do you want?
I'll start with my lowest priority.
Okay, go ahead.
So 1 is just, I know this is going to be lame, but I am just super curious about someone just remaking what it already is, just what we have already, like scrapping it and just giving another shot. See what they can come up with, like with Neo, with Morpheus, just a reboot. And I'm curious to see if we could same plot. Yeah, essentially.
Okay.
You could scrap 2 and 3 and come up with a better plot after that, but yeah, I'm curious to see what someone else would do with this idea and these characters right here. But that's like lowest priority, not the most exciting.
Sure. But fair. It's a great idea as it is. I think if you don't tamper with it enough, you shouldn't tamper with it at all, because it's pretty solid the way that it is.
Yeah.
So seeing someone reimagine it might be interesting.
All right, let's just trade off. What's one of yours?
I would like to see a period piece one.
Go on.
Like the Matrix is simulating the Civil War era. And everyone, no one is actually living through the Civil War. They're all in the machine world. And it's a similar plot, just set in the backdrop of an older time. I think that would be interesting.
What time period would you want to be most interested in picking?
Civil War seems kind of cool to me, actually, now that I brought it up. Or maybe like the American Revolution. Or you could go further back. You could do like knights and kings and stuff.
Yeah.
Because then it's maybe it's like Game of Thrones-y, but none of it's real. So there could be dragons and mythical things and all these crazy creatures, but none of them are real.
Let's see. So I think another one, this is less of a reboot and more of a prequel.
Okay.
But I would totes either one of these. I think it would be interesting to see the start of it all, like real world. We create AI. What turns AI against us? What is the war?
I think that's the Terminator movies.
I know, but I'm hoping someone just doesn't do the Terminator movies. Like something more interesting than it's just an evil robot. Like, I feel like it's not evil when it's first created. Or, like, do we make it evil? I think with all the cool ideas and concepts that are in The Matrix, you could come up with something really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Or Morpheus' story and how anyone figures out how to get out of the Matrix. Like, how does that happen? Like, where does that start?
It was the first person. How did they get out?
Yeah.
How did they get out?
I know. And I guess there's always, like, and that's another thing, like, so was there always a faction that never made it in? Like, never got assimilated, I say? And so did they then find their own way into the Matrix and just started pulling people out? Like, I'm curious about all of that. Like, you could tie that into a Morpheus story. And
yeah.
So I think that either one of those, I think, would be really cool.
That would be cool.
All right, what's another one of yours?
Okay, so one of the things I really liked about the original movie is I guess they didn't do too much of it, but I really enjoyed that moment where they talk about deja vu and how that's like a glitch in the Matrix. Whenever you see it, it's because, you're experiencing them changing something in the Matrix. I thought that was cool.
Yeah. So
I would like to, like, more stuff like that in conjunction with, like, the werewolf thing or, the vampire ghost thing. Like, I feel like those were all cool little tidbits that were just, like, sprinkled onto these movies. But I think more around those ideas would be cool. Like, I guess programs gone rogue.
Yeah.
Like quote unquote good machines turning against the bad machines or whatever. And then playing with the whole idea of what makes what's good or bad in a world that is simulated.
All right. Another one would just be totally left field, set in the Matrix, but like not action at all. Just like straight philosophical, like ideas about the Matrix and just discussions like that. Forget any of the actiony stuff. Talking movie. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Let's do it. You love talking movies.
I do like that. That'd be cool.
So I don't know.
Definitely watch that.
Just like what does this mean? And just talking about that and like take the silly conversations they had in this one and actually make them good ones and discuss like big ideas.
Yeah, I like that. I think that might be one of my favorite ones. That would be cool.
So that'll never happen though. People want their action, especially when you can do anything.
Whatever. They should just start a Matrix cinematic universe and one of them is a Talkie movie.
Yes.
I don't have much for this. I'll just say it, and then I'll quickly go to a second one. Machine point of view.
Okay.
Machines remain like the whole. I guess that's similar to what I just said with machines going rogue, but one that like what is it like to be the machines controlling the whole thing?
All right.
Because I'm almost wondering, like, is that a movie with very little dialogue? Because even then, that's kind of interesting too. If it's just a largely visual movie, and they have to convey what a machine is thinking and feeling.
How would you do it? Would you do not much dialogue, or would you like intersperse with the Matrix so they have programs to talk for them? How do you think you would handle it?
Yeah, I think maybe I would dance the line of like, anytime we're seeing the real world, no dialogue. And then we go into the Matrix for brief dialogue, try to keep it very visual.
Yeah.
And I don't even know what story you would tell that. I just think that idea is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Like to portray the humans in the antagonist light.
Yeah.
And sympathize with the machines.
All right. I think my last one would be something that's just set in the Matrix, and that's it. No real world ties. No anything, just like kind of like a start of an anthology or something. Just stories of like really cool characters in the Matrix. I don't know. I just have this idea of like a bunch, because I mean they already kind of like breach on that with even this one. You have the like werewolves and vampires and ghost part, but just like making even cooler ideas than just Neo, just the one, but like a bunch of different people in the Matrix that have all these abilities. I don't know. Just something that stays in the Matrix. I would have to like think a lot more on it, but I just think there's so many cool things you can do in the Matrix. So I'm wondering what an entire movie devoted to just inside of it looks like, and what do people fight for in it? Because these people would obviously know about the real world. It's not just like people wondering, like it's not people who don't know what the Matrix is. They know what the Matrix is, and they just fight inside of it. But I think that's my last one. That's all I got.
Okay. I think it would be cool if maybe the fact, like, okay, so I'm trying to think about how to set this up in a way that would actually inform what the idea is, but it's an action movie, and that's kind of all I got. It's an action movie in the same vein, like largely real, great choreography, lots of interesting fight sequences. And then you reveal at the end of the movie, or towards the end, maybe it's like the end of Act 2, that it's a Matrix movie.
Ooh, all right.
So it's not called Matrix. It's not marketed as a Matrix movie. It's just at the end of Act 2, they reveal none of this was real. It's the Matrix.
That'd be cool.
Right, because that's an interesting element of the first movie for Neo.
Yeah.
That we knew the whole time it wasn't real. So imagine if we went on that ride with him and experienced like, holy crap, none of it was real. my last idea is not really an idea about the movie itself, but I definitely would be interested in a sequel or a reboot directed by Keanu Reeves. I want to see him direct.
You are so on board with Keanu directing.
Yeah, I'm just very supportive of the man. I want him to succeed. I want him to direct John Wick 3, and I want him to direct a Matrix movie.
In case you're wondering, and in case you are listening in, Mr. Reeves, he thinks you're going to be the next Clint Eastwood. Yep. He thinks Keanu Reeves will be the next Clint Eastwood. Great actor, turns into a great director and makes great movies.
It's happening. Like just look at John Wick, and that's not even all of the cool stuff that he's been up to lately. He's coming back in a large way, and I think he definitely has the potential.
I'm thinking I'm back.
Boom, exactly. I would like to see him direct one, and if not direct, I think it would be cool to see Neo back in some capacity.
Yeah, it'd be cool.
Not as a main character, but to come back in some form, I think would be cool.
Be like a side character that saves the day at the end.
Yeah.
Oh, it's Neo. Solid. We should get this going. We should become producers on it somehow. Talk to the right people.
Clearly.
Get this thing going. And we'll just draw one of our ideas from a hat.
Yeah. I think we got some good stuff here.
I think so too. All right. Well, anything else?
I don't think so. I think that's the show.
Boom.
Boom. Tweet in. Our Twitter handles are in the description. What's your Matrix reboot idea? What would you want to see? What would you do with the property, with the franchise? Tweet at us. And thank you for listening. If you want to keep supporting the show, retweet our link when we post it out every Monday morning. The podcast comes out. Go to our Twitter account and retweet that link. That would be a great help for us. And if you want to leave us an iTunes review, that would be great as well. I don't quite remember what movie is next week, so I don't want to say it, just in case. But it will be another movie, so tune in next week. We'll talk about another one.
It will be another movie.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
See y'all.
See ya.